straight into the Hayom Yom, the thought for today. The thought for today, which is from the Rebbe. Welcome to Corey. Welcome to our class. Today is the 6th day of Nisan. Experience has shown that with less speculation, but working with orderliness and firmness, in accordance with the pleasantness of Torah, with the right hand bringing close and the left hand rejecting, one is certain to achieve results, especially in matters concerning the fundamentals of our religion. Basically, bottom line, on kin chachmas, as we say in Yiddish. Don't think too hard, just do. Don't experience paralysis by analysis. If you are here in this class and you're inspired, and I hope that you are, and you're thinking about your friends and how on earth you can draw this inspiration to them, by the way, you know what you can do is you can share this video right now on Facebook, or you can at least like it on YouTube or on Facebook. And by just doing so, your friends will automatically be encouraged to see this video. I heard that the Palercios yesterday shared this video on their Facebook streams, and they were hearing good feedback from their wider social circles, which is great stuff, and I'm grateful to them for that. But in general, what the Hayom Yom is saying is that if you want to share this inspiration with other people, your inspiration, if you want to share the love in your heart with your friends, and they just don't get it, experience has shown, don't think so hard, just go in a manner which is consistent with the pleasantness of Torah, which means firm but kind. If you operate in that way, something funny going on my computer screen. It's asking for permission for something weird. I don't know what's going on over here, but I hope you can still see me. I just got this weird thing on my screen right now. But if you work in a consistent way and you trust in God, you just be consistent. Don't worry about it. You will succeed. Don't give up. Just work hard, and you will succeed. So don't worry about the destination. Just worry about what you need to do, and you'll get there. I got to tell you, as a Chabad rabbi, I feel this every single day. Here we are. We're in a community like Palm Beach Gardens, and let's face reality. We're subject to a lot of prejudice. A lot of people, when we meet them for the first time, they think they know every detail about us, and honestly, they have no clue. And we've got to deal with people that are very smart, and they're so smart that they think they know everything, including that I know, or everything about me. And you've got to work with kindness and compassion and humility and empathy, and just be consistent. That's how we do it in Chabad. We just put the pedal to the metal. We're not afraid to hit the pavement. Is that an expression, to hit the pavement? I don't know. But whatever the case is, we're not afraid to just keep on trucking, moving forward, sharing the inspiration, doing so with love, doing so with joy, with compassion. And hopefully some of that will rub off onto our fellow Jews and inspire them to experience more depth, joy, and meaning in their Judaism as well. But I think that was a really great conversation that we had, inspired by Bob Wertheimer's question about the mitzvahs being so strict and demanding. And I really hope that was a meaningful conversation there about how our connection to God is the most extraordinary opportunity, instead of being viewed as a chore and an obligation. Just think about that, meditate on that for a moment. It's really mind-blowing that God wants a relationship with you and with me. It's really beautiful. So with that, I'm going to move further into Talmud study. Without any further ado, here it is. Ein Yaakov is by Art Scroll Masorah Publications. And we have over here the stories of the Talmud. We're going straight into it. And we're starting a brand new section it's on paragraph 21. It's page 78. Page 78. Another teaching by Reb Chelbo in the name of Rav Huna about showing respect for prayer and the synagogue. I got to tell you just before we start, a quick story that happened yesterday. Something so beautiful. David says, very powerful message. God bless you and your family. Thank you so much, David. Helen and Warren, don't think too hard. Just do it. Powerful. Love it, Warren. Love it. I got to tell you a quick story. A friend of mine, Chavrusa, Torah study partner of mine from Kfar Chabad, Israel. We studied together in the yeshiva more than 20 years ago. Wow, am I that old? Okay. So we studied in the yeshiva together. He lives in Montreal today. His name is Zalmi Rader. And Zalmi Rader had a girl yesterday or 2 days ago, Mazel Tov. And he had to name the girl. Now, if the boy gets his name at a bris, and a bris, you don't need a minyan. But for a girl to name her, you do it over the Torah. And for the Torah reading, you need to have a minyan. But there's no minyans in Montreal. There's no minyans in North America. So he needed to name her. So what did he do? He found a minyan, a legal minyan, a kosher minyan, which is taking place right now in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's in an old age home, a retirement home. It's called Our Parents' Home, I think. No, it's actually called Sandringham Gardens. I don't remember, whatever. It's in Johannesburg, and it's a minyan of Jews that have been quarantined for a long time already. So I guess maybe from January they've been quarantined since they heard about Wuhan. And they've been quarantined for so long together that they just, they can do minions because they're, nobody's sick over there, thank God. So you see this video where they named his baby from Montreal, and the guy gets up there in his South African accent and he says, we got a name to name, and we're legal minions, so nobody else is able to name this baby. So we're going to do it. We don't know the last name of this guy, but hey, here goes. We're going to name his baby, their baby, and here goes. And he starts to name the baby. Such a beautiful video. But the most beautiful part of it all was that a couple hours after the baby naming, they named the daughter Tzivia. Tzivia, which is the feminine form of Tzvi. Tzvi means a deer. My second name is David Tzvi. And the feminine form of Tzvi is Tzivia. So it's a very common name. So the secretary of the retirement home sends a message to Rabbi Rader in Montreal, and she says, I saw the name of your daughter was Tzivia, and I have to tell you, her name is Ursula. This lady in South Africa is Ursula, and she sent him a letter that she many years ago she sent to the Rebbe, and she said, my name is Ursula. I don't have a Hebrew name, so the Rebbe wrote to her in his handwriting. He wrote to her and he said, I'll show you a picture of this. He wrote to her and he said, she asked, what is my Hebrew name? So the Rebbe's response, he wrote that your Hebrew name is Tzivia. Take a look at this. Your Hebrew name is Tzivia. I'm going to try to post it, see if you can see this. My name is Tzivia, and the Rebbe gave me the name. So this guy was a little uncomfortable, having his daughter named in a shul so far away. They didn't even know who he was. And he wasn't sure, if he was doing the right thing. But when he heard from the secretary that the Rebbe named the secretary, and he named it Tzivia, the guy felt like, oh my gosh, the Rebbe's like validating my name and just beautiful stuff. So anyways, that's just a quick little story about shuls around the world, because that's exactly what we're studying about over here, which is showing respect for prayer in the synagogue. Said Reb Chelba in the name of Rav Huna, when a person leaves the synagogue, he should not take long strides. Like, you shouldn't run out of a shul, because it would look like he's eager to leave. Abaya said, we say this only when someone is leaving the synagogue, but when going into the synagogue, then it is a mitzvah to run. As it says, let us run to know Hashem from the prophet Hosea. The Gemara talks about running to learn Torah. Reb Zera said, at first, when I saw rabbinical students running to the public lecture on Shabbos, I thought the rabbinic students are desecrating Shabbos because it is forbidden to take long strides on Shabbos. Generally, you're not allowed to run on Shabbos. But when I heard, because it's Shabbos, the day of rest, but when I heard that which Reb Tanchum said in the name of Rabbi Shimon Levi, quote, a person should always run to hear a matter of Torah law, even on Shabbos, as it says in the verse, they shall go after Hashem. Like when the lion roars, again from the prophet Hosea, I too began to run to the public lectures. So again, you're allowed to run to Torah, even on Shabbos. You're allowed to run to shul, but you're not allowed to run from a shul. That's forbidden. It is considered a grave insult to God Almighty to exhibit glee when leaving His presence. Another teaching about this, said Reb Zera, the main heavenly reward that people get for attending the public Torah lecture is for running to hear it. More reward than you get from actually experiencing the lecture, apparently. You get from the manner in which you went towards it. And a good example of this would be something we recite every morning, which is the biblical chapter of Abraham and Isaac going towards the binding of Isaac, the Akedas Yitzchak, when God gives Abraham his 10th and final test of faith. He says, I want you to bind your son upon the altar. So it says, Vayashkem Avraham baboiker. Abraham got up early in the morning. He didn't get up like 10:30. He got up early in the morning and he was excited. He exhibited alacrity in fulfilling the will of God. When your spouse asks you to do something, there's different ways to do it. Now the husbands are having a very hard time right now because all the things that they said they were going to do when they have time, this quarantine is when you have the time. So, a good thing I heard once was that ladies, listen, wives, you got to calm down and realize that if your husband says he's going to do something, he will do it. It's not necessary to remind him every 6 months. Right? So the question is, not what you do, but how fast you do it, which is the true exhibition of love. That's really what matters. You might get the thing done that your wife asked you to do, but if you did it 6 months later, you kind of lost all the brownie points. If you do it right away, now you're talking. And that's what the Talmud say. More important, more pleasurable to God than your attendance at the Torah session is the way that you got there. Comments. Alyssa, good morning, Alyssa, welcome. Graciela, we are good on that. We never want to leave shul on Saturdays. Yes, that's right. It's amazing. My brother came from Manhattan here once, and he said, this shul's amazing. He came to Chabad Palm Beach Garden. He said, in Manhattan, after shul, people stick around for like 5 minutes tops. After 5 minutes, the place is empty. Chabad Palm Beach Gardens, like 2 hours after the davening's over, people are still at shul. They're hanging out. They actually like being here. It's beautiful. You're right, Graciela. Jews were chosen, Warren and Helen. Jews were chosen by Hashem for a reason, comes with responsibilities. We are different. We should cherish and respect that difference. Warren. I'm not sure, Warren, which point you're connected to over here. I'm not sure. I got myself a little confused with all this stuff. Gail likes this, says Rob Wernheimer. Awesome stuff, Gail. Remember, whatever your husband tells you, if he's going to do something, you don't have to remind him every 6 months. Okay, so Helen, Warren, Jews are chosen. I'm not sure exactly, Warren, could you elaborate a little bit? Because I didn't uncapture exactly what you're referring to. Let's see what's going on YouTube. Switch over there a second. Susan Benson, you said don't have paralysis with analysis, but as a Jew, we question everything, and that leads to more questions. Isn't that analysis? Yes, but that analysis, Susan, in and of itself is connecting with God. That's the mitzvah of Torah study. It's the mitzvah of Torah study. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So somebody says to me, Rabbi, I refuse to lay tefillin until I completely understand every detail of how the tefillin works and why and who and where and what and when. And I look at the guy and I'm like, so you don't do anything before you understand it, right? You analyze everything before you do it. He's like, yes, I'm a very rational person. So I say, okay, so either you didn't eat breakfast for the last 12 years or you know every detail of the human digestive system. And the guy very quickly realizes that he's got a double standard here because he obviously did eat breakfast and he didn't worry about exactly which enzyme was being absorbed in which intestine and which protein was going in which direction. That wasn't the problem right now. So obviously you don't have to get lost in the details. Just do it. Yeah, exactly. My point is don't get lost in the details. And when we analyze Torah study, that itself is a mitzvah. Okay, good. Keep on. We're moving forward over here in the Talmud. So the Talmud states as follows. The Gemara continues with similar teachings of other Talmudic scholars, Amoraim as they're called. Abaye said the reward that people get for it. Again, if you just joined us, we're studying Tractate Brachot, the first tractate of the Talmud. We're studying it in Yaakov, which is called the Eye of Jacob. It's a 15th century work by a Spanish scholar by the name of Rabbeinu Yaakov Shlomo, I think his name was, and he was expelled in the Spanish Inquisition. He basically lived during a time when the Jews were on the run and their ability to focus and concentrate was probably mitigated severely because they were running away from the Spanish expulsion. So what he did is that he summarized the stories of the Talmud. He distilled them away from the legal components, and it's a lot lighter Talmud. You're still studying Talmud, but you're studying the neshama, the soul of the Talmud, in the most beautiful way. The Alter Rebbe speaks highly of the virtues of studying this particular work and how it assures you a portion in heaven. It's a good deal. The Gemara continues. Abaye said the reward that people get for attending the public lecture given on Shabbos before a festival about the laws of the upcoming festival is for being crowded there. Now, this is fascinating stuff. So the reward that people get for attending the public lecture on the Shabbos before a festival, this Shabbos is the Shabbos before Passover. It's called Shabbat HaGadol, the great Shabbos. One of the reasons it's called Shabbat HaGadol is because the rabbi is supposed to give a great sermon, a very big sermon. The rabbi is supposed to talk about all the details of Passover. By the way, tonight at 8:30, we're having an 8:30 p.m. Zoom class promoting how to make a more meaningful Passover Seder in your own home. Many people are leading the Seder in their own homes this year. So we're going to talk about that tonight at 8:30. The Zoom information is posted in the Friday email that was sent out this past Friday. So do please join us on tonight at 8:30 p.m. for the Zoom Passover class on how to make a more meaningful Seder in your home. But what's interesting here is that the Shabbos before Passover, as the Shabbos before any major Yontif, the rabbi is supposed to give a public lecture about the laws of that festival like we're doing tonight. So the reward that people get for attending the public lecture in that nature is not running there, but by being crowded there. I wonder how that works in a Zoom, Facebook Live, or YouTube Live world where there is no crowding. I don't know how that works. It's kind of interesting. Rava said the reward that a person... So basically, if you feel like crowded and squished, that's the reward that you get for being in squished. Like, it connects, I guess, to what Susan Pelosi said earlier, that the harder the mitzvah is, the more deeper the connection, which is a beautiful perspective. Maybe that's what it's saying over here. Rava said the reward that a person gets for engaging in a Talmudic discussion is for the reasoning it involves. That is, someone who studies the give and take of a Talmudic discussion is rewarded for the mental effort spent in understanding its reasoning. Interesting notes over here. Most of the people attending these lectures do not really understand what is being taught there. I guess they had many of the simple people, unlettered and maybe not so familiar with the laws. They would just sort of show up to these great big lectures before the holiday to try to understand anything that they could. So they weren't really able to understand what was mostly flying, but their reward is what the Talmud is saying is at the very least they're being rewarded for the crowd, for being crowded, for being squashed, or for running there. Their main reward then is for being there despite the discomfort caused by large crowds. Like we say in America, 95% of life is showing up. And if you just showed up to the public lecture right there, you got your reward. According to Akos of the Gemara is emphasizing the additional reward a person receives for attending the lecture despite the discomfort. Okay. A little further here in the Talmud, the reward, Rav Papa said, the reward a person gets for visiting a house of mourning. This is interesting. The reward a person gets for visiting a house of mourning. You go to a house of mourning, you don't know what to do. The reward for visiting a house of mourning, a Shiva house, is for his silence there. Interesting. Now, what do you think that means? The reward you get for going to a house of mourning is for keeping your mouth shut. Interesting. Why would that be? That awkward silence when you go to a house of mourning and you don't know what to say. The worst thing you could do at a house of mourning, by the way, I'm a rabbi, I got a lot of experience, is to explain and rationalize the death. It's like the worst thing you could do. At least she's in a better place now. I don't think they're looking for your rationalization. They're not looking for you to explain it away. They're not looking for you to justify the death of their loved one. They just need your presence. Just show up. Just be there. Oftentimes people just don't have a clue what to say at a Shiva house. The Talmud is telling us what to say. Nada. Say nothing. That's what you're supposed to say. Do you know that according to Jewish law, when you go to a Shiva house, you're not allowed to speak before the mourner speaks? The mourner has to open the conversation because anything that would come out of your mouth is probably the wrong thing to say in front of the mourner. For example, you get up there and you're like, the Yankees won, right? That's totally insensitive and painful. You don't want to say anything in the house of a mourner. You want to wait for the mourner to open the conversation, then you can talk. So the awkward silence, that painful silence that you experience in the house of the mourner, that's what you want to be doing in the house of the mourner. Alyssa is pointing out, listen to the mourner. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. So Helen is saying, Hashem gave us the Torah. Comes with responsibilities. We are learning and understanding the importance of connecting with Hashem. That's exactly what's going on over here. It's all about realizing not what you're doing, but who you're connecting with in the context of the conversation. And a few minutes ago, the context of doing a mitzvah. So that's what the Talmud is saying now. That I see Susan understands. Thank you, Susan. You got it. Perfect. Back to the Talmud. Mar Zutra said the reward a person gets for a fast day is for giving charity. Now that's interesting. Did you know that you have to give charity on a fast day? It's the payment of the fast day. If you're fasting and you see the fasting as like, I saved some money because I didn't eat lunch today or breakfast or dinner. If you're thinking about the money that you saved, then you've blown the reward. The purpose of the fast day is like you're bringing an offering before God. Did you know that? When you're fasting, it's like bringing an animal sacrifice to God. What's an animal sacrifice? You're taking like flesh and you're offering it before God, animal flesh, right? But when you fast and you don't get fat from breakfast, lunch, and supper, then what happens is that the fat that you could have had is dedicated to God. So you're giving it to God. But if you made money by not eating, then you've not given nothing to God. If you then take the money that you would have spent on food on that day and you put that into a charity box, now you've really donated your very flesh. I guess you might call it a pound of flesh in the most positive, kind, and altruistic manner, not like our English friend Shakespeare. So we're in the middle of the Talmud. It's talking about various rewards. The reward a person gets for a fast day is for giving charity. It was customary to give charity toward the end of the fast, that the poor people would fast, that they could buy food. It's a very practical directive. Giving charity is more important than the fast itself, since the purpose of the fast is to inspire repentance and good deeds. One final piece before we conclude the chapter of Talmud here. The paragraph that Rav Sheshes said that a reward a person gets for delivering a eulogy is for raising his voice in grief. Is for raising his voice in grief in order to move the audience to tears. This is certainly the butt of jokes. We're going to run into a problem over here because if your eulogy has tears in it, you get much more reward than if the eulogy does not have tears. Do you know that the number one fear, you know what the number one fear of Americans is? There was a study done, apparently, that the number one fear, the greatest fear your average American has is public speaking. Did you know that? Isn't that amazing? Your average American, I mean, I see it in shul when I ask people to speak, some people, they just turn red and I'm like, okay, you don't have to speak. It's okay. We're just kidding. We're just offering you. Some people, they just are so embarrassed. They cannot speak in public. The number two fear of your average American is dying. So our friend Jerry Seinfeld points out, therefore, that this means that for your average American, he would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy. Go figure. So apparently what the Talmud is telling us right here is that, I see Warren, Helen, telling a Jew to say nothing can be challenging. Indeed, public speaking second is that. You got it, Rob. Okay, so delivering eulogy with tears is more worthy than delivering a eulogy without tears. Rav Ashi said that a reward a person gets for attending a wedding is for the gladdening words he says to the groom. Do you know what you're supposed to say to a groom in a wedding? You're supposed to tell the groom how beautiful the wife is. You're supposed to tell the groom how beautiful the wife looks. That's what you're supposed to say to gladden the groom. Now, there's a whole discussion over here about the eulogies and legacies. I'm going to go just finish up with that discussion over here. Eulogies and legacies. Reb Chaim of Volozhin explains the reward for a eulogy is raising. Well, we translated it to mean raising his voice in grief in order to move the audience to tears. You're not just supposed to stamp say eulogy. You're supposed to say a eulogy that's stirring, that's moving, right? Rob says, not me. I guess you'd rather be delivering the eulogy than in the casket. Okay, there you go, Rob. You are part of the minority. Okay, good. So Reb Chaim of Volozhin, same minority, explains the reward for, so he reads it like this. The term, Reb Chaim of Volozhin, of the Yeshiva of Volozhin, explains the reward for eulogy is raising. Here's how he explains it. The term daluya is derived from dala, which means to draw water from a well. The Gemara's message is that the main purpose of eulogy is to help the listeners draw, not raise, but to draw. He translates the words a little more literally. To draw from the good qualities of the deceased and adopt them as their own. When you talk about a person's achievements, accolades, and legacy, you're supposed to inspire the listeners to continue and perpetuate that legacy. That's what's supposed to happen over here, and that's what a good eulogy is. In this way, the listeners will perpetuate the life of the deceased and add greatly to his merit. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, apparently this is one of my ancestors. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz was a fellow. He lived in Prussia. He was very friendly with the Kaiser Wilhelm, and he wrote a book called Yaris Vash, which means the forests of honey. He was often debating against the Christians in these forced debates where the rabbi was not allowed to win for fear of being accused of treason, nor was the rabbi allowed to lose for fear of having forced conversions for the Jewish community. So he was an interesting fellow, this Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. He actually said, when the Christian ministers asked him in a public debate in front of the king, why the Jews don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, he said that the reason is because Jesus died. That's why. And ever since then, the Jews believed that the Messiah can't be deceased. When in reality, the Talmud explicitly states that the Messiah can be from the living or from the dead. He's going to be one of the first people, probably the first person to be resurrected from the dead with the coming of the Messiah. So the Rebbe points out that not everything that Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz says can be taken as law, because many times he literally had to sell a boat to the Gentiles, to the Christians, who he was arguing with. Fascinating stuff, this guy, what he had to deal with. But a brilliant man. Just a quick story about him is that one time the king of Prussia decided to expel the Jews from Prussia, which would have been a terrible death sentence for thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jews that lived there. And he came to the king to appeal, and the king somehow told him like this. He says, as many times as you can write the word Am Yisrael Chai on a little chart this size, like a little, like a Sudoku board. As many times as you can write Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live, on that Sudoku board, every time you write it, I'll allow one Jew to stay in the country. He was so brilliant that he managed to write Am Yisrael Chai on this crossword puzzle situation countless times, and the Jews were all able to stay. You can actually look it up. It's incredible. He was just a brilliant genius of a man. So here's his commentary on this Talmud, which says that the reward a person gets for delivering eulogy is for raising his voice in grief. He points out that it is not only an act of kindness to the deceased and a display of respect for him, but it is also a profound opportunity for those mourning his passing. For the good qualities of a departed soul are readily available to the living. They are free and for the taking. So the good qualities of the deceased are actually searching for a new home at the funeral. If you go to a funeral, it's like going to like a giveaway, like an estate sale giveaway. The guy died. We're looking to get rid of the furniture. So Rabbi Yonasan Eibishter says that the good qualities of a person are actually free for the taking. Good morning, Andy. Are free for the taking when you show up to the funeral, and therefore take advantage. Again, he points out that it's not only an act of kindness to the deceased and a display of respect for him, but it is also a profound opportunity for those mourning his passing, for the good qualities of a departed soul are readily available to the living. They are free and for the taking. Each and every Jew can lay claim to one or more of those qualities, be it his humility, his love of Torah, devotion to peace, compassion for the needy, scrupulousness in a mitzvah performance, etc. You can actually pick up easy good traits at the funeral of a righteous person. So take advantage. It is important, Jairus Vash explains, from another angle, that these qualities not be lost, for the Jewish people as a whole must possess all the ingredients of human perfection as one large collective entity. Just as the heavenly world is not complete unless there are a certain number of angels with the power of mercy, others with the power of strict justice, others tasked with defending the Jewish people, and others tasked with singing God's praises, so too is this world incomplete without a certain number of people who excel in each aspect of human perfection. So when we lose a righteous person, it's important that somebody else pick up the baton and not drop the ball, because then we, as a collective Jewish people, will suffer. An ancient example of this is the distribution process has been preserved for us by the Gaonim. The Gaonim cite the tradition about what occurred when Rav, the great Talmudic sage, the great Amora, passed away. His disciples contemplated adopting the full range of his qualities in their own lives, but they soon realized that this was beyond their reach. Instead, they divided his qualities amongst themselves, each one adopting another quality: walking with humble posture, walking with a head covering. I think they're talking about a second head covering, like a hat or a talus, which we cover. Eating 3 meals on Shabbos, looking only straight ahead while in the street as opposed to all the billboards. Entering the study hall discreetly so as not to bother the students to stand up for him, keeping a restricted diet to avoid forbidden foods, tactfully approaching anyone who insulted him to give him the chance to ask for forgiveness, wearing tefillin all day, using his pleasant voice to promote Torah learning and enhance the communal studies. In this way, a eulogy actually becomes a legacy. This is the greatest reward. So really an extraordinary opportunity here, folks, to be able to what's the word here? To experience a funeral. We just reinvented the funeral. I just want you to realize what just happened. So most of us think of going to a funeral is like an experience where you're basically, where you're basically going to pay respects to someone else who's basically dead. So it doesn't really make sense why I am going to their funeral. The guy's not even going to know that I showed up. So why am I going? Okay, so you're going for the mourners. Fine. So if you didn't know the mourners, should you go to a funeral? What do you say, guys? What do you say? Rob Briskin, I see, joined us over here. Hi, Kobe. Hi. We missed you all in Haifa. Fantastic. Good stuff. So, Rob Briskin, what do you say to this? You're a doctor. How do you guys feel about going to a funeral where you knew the deceased, but you don't know their kids? Would you go to such a funeral? Would you go to such a shiva house? and why? I'm curious to hear your comments. But based upon what we're learning, and what's your Shiva story? Anybody got a good Shiva story to share over here? A good funeral story to share? You know, I got to, while you're thinking or posting, I just want to share with you a quick story about the rabbi, the priest, and the imam who are having a conversation about what they once said at their eulogy. So, the priest says, I want them to say at my eulogy, I want someone to get up and say that he was a scholar. He was an academic. He was a philosopher. He was one who loved wisdom. Wisdom was his ideal. The imam says, in my eulogy, I want him to say he was a kind man. He cared about people. He loved people. And the rabbi gets up and he says, at my funeral, at my eulogy, I want them to say, I want someone to stand up and say, look, he's moving. Okay, any comments here on a meaningful, a cute story? Yes, I would go. Susan says she would go to a funeral where you know the deceased, but you don't know the mourners. It almost seems like an exercise in futility, like it doesn't really matter. Nobody would ever even know that you went. Rob Riskin, what does MEND impact have on the virus? As social grouping in Israel's religious community have backfired with the increased number of cases. Rob, I'm not capturing your comment over here. And impact. I don't really understand what you're saying on YouTube, Rob. If you could be a little more expressive of your wording over there, maybe the spelling is a little off. Israel's religious community, I got to tell you, I think what you're talking about is Israel's religious community is struggling with staying away from minions right now because they're really struggling with not going to shul. And hearing it from the secular health ministry that's telling them not to go to shul. It doesn't go well in Israel if you know the various religious factions. But slowly but surely, I think they're really getting the message, faster than slower actually, that it's for their own well-being. And God actually despises a minion which has blood on its hands. There's actually a quote in Isaiah that says, if you think that God appreciates your prayer, if your prayer has with it blood on its hands, then it's really not a good thing. So yeah, I mean, Israel, so the religious community is not accustomed to listening to taking orders from anybody, not from their, these guys don't always even go to the army, So for them to take orders from the religious ministry to shut down their shuls, you can just imagine doesn't go over too well. But I think we're getting there. I think social distancing is working. Just remember, let's not judge our fellow Jews. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They mean well. They think they're doing the right thing. But slowly but surely, we're getting the message out. The rabbis are giving leadership. They're saying, listen, don't do it. We're banning the minions. We're banning the outdoor minions. We're banning the private minions. Everything's being banned. So slowly but surely, getting the message. Adrian, isn't the mitzvah to accompany the dead? Yes, but why, Adrian? Why is it a mitzvah to accompany the dead? Mickey, absolutely would go to the funeral and to the Shiva house out of respect to the deceased. Marty, I agree with Mickey. Daniel, yes, I would go for respect to the person who passed away. Robin Weiss, I've made a Shiva call when a friend passed away, even though I didn't know children. I thought it was a nice way to let the children know their mom was beloved and will be missed by many more when they realize. And it's true, you really are able to impact deeply the children when you tell them stories about your relationship with the parents. It's very beautiful. When my grandmother passed away, my father's mother, people came to the Shiva to tell my parents about how my grandmother sustained them privately. Apparently nobody knew about this, but I think it was every Thursday afternoon or Thursday night, my grandmother would go somewhere all by herself, never allowed the children to go with her. And only at her Shiva did they find out that what she was doing was distributing charity funds before Shabbos to people that she wanted nobody to be aware of. She literally would hand out tzedakah handouts to people to buy food for Shabbos without anybody knowing, not even her own children. It was only at the Shiva that they found out about it. And that's why it's certainly a beautiful thing to honor the deceased. But today we've learned from Yonasan Ebershitz, from the Talmud, that there's even a benefit to yourself, because when you go to the Shiva house, it's like a giveaway. You have the collective of the Jewish people has all of these qualities, and we always have to maintain all these qualities within the collective of the Jewish people. When somebody passes away, their good qualities are up for grabs, and you can go and literally collect them. They might be too powerful for one person or not, but you can go and literally acquire them. I guess you do so by meditation or by connecting with that eulogy. And when the eulogy speaks, you hear the good qualities, and you can sort of be inspired to take them. And if you can do that, you can make a beautiful, profound difference to the soul. Sorry, to yourself as you acquire the good qualities. All right, folks, I'm going to move along right now. Marty, going to weddings are so selfish in NYC. Yes, again, there are some weddings that I heard about happening in some communities, religious communities in New York City. And I don't know if it's selfish, Marty, as much as it is supremely naive. Like supremely naive. Think about it for a moment, about the Jews in the Holocaust. Why did the Jews not flee Germany in the Holocaust? Think about it. And they said it's never going to happen to me mentality, right? It's a mentality, it could never happen, not on my doorstep, not in my backyard. It's never happening here. And I think the same thing's going on in these communities when they feel themselves immune to coronavirus. That they feel, yeah, we can do the wedding. What's the big deal? Nobody's getting sick, And it's just a supremely naive attitude, which unfortunately is nothing new to humanity. We all suffer from this "it's never going to happen to me" mentality. And I think humanity as a whole is doing pretty well right now in terms of socially distancing. Well, for the most part, you see some videos coming out. It's not just the religious Jewish community. You should see what's going on in South Africa right now. I mean, the police are literally spraying people with water cannons to make them disperse. It's crazy. It's not just the religious community. I think the media is sensationalize the religious Jewish community for some reason, but there are many communities like that. Whatever. We just let's not judge any other human beings, any other Jews. Certainly not our fellow Jews. It puts a huge burden on the healthcare community. I agree with you, Marty. Absolutely, it spreads the virus, but we have to also be mindful of not spreading the virus of lashon hara, of evil talk about anyone else, about a fellow Jew. And generally speaking, here's the rule: if you have nothing nice to say, we should say nothing. You know what I mean? It's easy in our environment to speak badly about what the media shows us in any kinds of communities anyway, but let's try to give them the benefit of the doubt. I learned yesterday something fascinating. Where was it? I don't remember what I was learning, where I was learning it. Can't remember anymore. But I learned that. I learned it from the teacher of Rabbi Akiva. I'm trying to think in which context I was learning this. I was learning with my kids last night that Rabbi Akiva asked Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, Talmudic sage, one of his mentors, who was actually very, very critical of Akiva in his early progress of Torah. He asked him how he merited to live so long. And he said like this, very interesting, for us who are struggling with coronavirus. He said, the way I merited, he first asked him how he merited to live so long. And the students of Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana felt that was an insulting question. So they tried to attack Akiva. So Akiva climbed up a tree. And then he asked him another question. I forget what it was. But basically, Akiva was not embarrassed to learn. And that's how he learned. He became such a great sage because a modest person doesn't learn. A shy person doesn't learn. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions, especially on this forum. I want to encourage everybody to ask questions. By the way, anyway, so Akiva asked him, how do you merit to live so long? And Rabbi Nechunya said, the way I merited to live so long was because I always judged other people favorably. I always spoke kindly about other people, even though they were undeserving. And because of that, God was forced to judge me favorably as well. So anytime God wanted to take me from this world, God had no choice because I was judging everybody else favorably. Therefore, God had to also give me the benefit of the doubt and give me a pass, so to speak. So I think it's a beautiful trait for us to employ and engage, maybe to be inspired to adopt in our own lives right now. That for purely selfish reasons, we should speak kindly about other Jews, other human beings in general. Because when we speak kindly and judge favorably other people to a fault, then God is forced to do the same with us. And who doesn't want God to give him the benefit of the doubt? Then when you next time are faced with the opportunity to criticize another fellow Jew, see it as an opportunity to force God's hand to judge you favorably. By you taking this insistent approach to speak kindly about another Jew, even though they're undeserving of your kindness, what you're doing is that you're forcing God's hand to be judging you favorably as well, and you'll live long. Comments from Rob. Who to trust, ultimate in God, is fundamental, although the realities of transmission need to be adhered to despite religious faith. Absolutely, Rob. We have to be very, very, very cautious to listen to all the directives of our healthcare providers and our government officials, and any quarantine directives we have to listen to religiously. In fact, it's a mitzvah in the Torah to guard your souls. So you have to listen to a doctor. You have to listen. In fact, Rob, you know that before we shut down our shul, I called you for advice. The Rebbe says before you take medical action, you have to ask a Rofa Yadid, a doctor who's also a friend. And I turned to you and I asked you for advice, Rob. I said, should we or should we not shut down the shul? After putting thought into it, you said absolutely we should shut down the shul, and that's exactly what we did over 2 weeks ago. We didn't shut it down. We just moved it virtual. That's all we did, which is great. We're connecting with more people than ever before. But thank you for your advice. And yes, trust in God, ultimate in God. But God wants you to work with medical directives as well. Susan, what about going to the funeral when you didn't know the deceased but know the daughter of the deceased? I think this is a good thing to do. What is your opinion? I think absolutely you should go to honor the people in mourning. For sure, you should go. And by honoring them, you're also honoring the deceased, and that's a tremendous mitzvah as well. Okay, good. Now, folks, I've got a bit of a quandary over here. We're going through a huge wake-up call. Let's learn from it. Warren, I think Mashiach is coming, by the way. Absolutely, I believe Mashiach is coming. And I realized I want to teach a class on Mashiach and what's going to be when Mashiach comes. I'm curious to know. I had this epiphany the other day when I wrote the article on Friday that Mashiach is coming. And I thought, I wonder if people are interested in learning about Mashiach and what life is going to be like when Mashiach comes. I thought I'd give a class through this quarantine period. I'm just not sure when to do it or how to do it. If you have any feedback or comments, if you'd like to hear such a class, please do let me know. Comment over here. Please post your comments. If you'd like to learn maybe a few minutes a day about what it would be like to when Mashiach comes, I think it would be fascinating to learn that stuff. And a special directive that the Rebbe gave us just before the Rebbe passed away. The Rebbe said we should prepare the world for the coming of Mashiach, and we should learn about what it's going to be like when Mashiach comes. So basically, I'm planning on doing it. When do you think is the right time to teach it? Should we just add like 5 minutes to our study over here in the morning, or is there another time you think is appropriate? Please, would love to hear from you. Don't forget, guys, by the way, tonight at 8:30 is our class on making a more meaningful Passover Seder. It's going to be on Zoom, probably also on Facebook Live, and would love to hear, to have your participation tonight at 8:30. The Zoom link is on the Friday email. Also, I just want to tell you, everybody, that Elaine Collins is coordinating as part of the as her Avos Yisrael committee, which means love of your fellow Jew. She's the chair. She's coordinating a Adopt a Senior program. There are people in our community that are stuck at home, and they can't do shopping, they can't get out, and they're kind of isolated. Their children, grandchildren cannot even visit them, and they're very, very lonely. So if you are a senior or somebody quarantined at home and are lonely, please call Elaine Collins. Her email is artisanimp. Elaine, if you're listening to this, can you please post your, or if somebody could please post Elaine Collins's email and cell phone over here on Facebook, that'll be great. And on YouTube, that'll be really, really nice. I'm sure a lot of people here knows who Elaine is. Elaine Collins, just call her if you want to volunteer your time to help with a senior or a quarantine person, or if you are one of those quarantined or senior people that needs a little more TLC, a little more love. I see the comments coming in, definitely. Alyssa, Mickey, Cookie says absolutely wants Mashiach class. Helen says yes. Warren, okay, good. So looks like people want that class. And yes, in the morning. Okay, good.